So today's session is going to be about a bit of my journey into this digital world as an international woman, and also then the session will follow up with the introduction to programming using Python. All right. So yeah. I'll talk a bit about my journey first, how it all started, so a bit more about my personal journey, followed by my research, and also then we'll do some programming. So I'll try and teach you some of the basic concepts, and then I'll give you opportunity for you to kind of do your own programming, and I will be here to help you out whenever you have any queries and questions, and then there will be a short quiz at the end. So a bit about me. My name is Bhagyashree Patil. Not many people can pronounce it, so you can all call me Bhagi. I am a lecturer at the University of Bath in Computer Science Department. I've been working here now 2 years. I am also a researcher in human-computer interaction, which is an interdisciplinary area combining psychology, engineering, arts, computer science, social sciences, and many, many other sectors. I am a member at a human-computer interaction lab, which is called Create Lab here at the University of Bath. And I'm also a resident at Pervasive Media Studio, which is in Watershed in Bristol. All right, so starting with kind of like my journey. This is me when I was small, really tiny. So I grew up in India. I wasn't born here. I grew up in India, and in a very traditional family. I went to a Marathi school, which is my mother tongue.
Has been done.
Sorry, guys, could you please mute yourself? I think someone's microphone's on.
For example, as a user, when you go to a website, you see this cookie notice.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Okay, so yeah, I grew up in a very traditional Indian family. I went to a Marathi medium, which is my mother tongue. Marathi is my mother tongue. I went to a Marathi medium school, so I didn't go to English medium school like most of the Indians you might meet. And it was also a girls' school. So it was kind of like a very traditional family where my father was the boss, and he was, so we had to kind of listen to him and do what he said and things like that. So growing up, I struggled to learn English a lot. That was my worst subject, and that was my weakest subject. However, if you wanted to study any STEM topic, if you wanted to go study science, you had to learn English because all of the science courses at the universities are taught in English. So I started learning, kind of like got to know more of English after I was 16 years old, which is, I think, quite late in life. So when I started thinking about what I wanted to do in life, back in those days, the IT wasn't as big, but it was just taking kind of like the industry was just starting. And my father was he previously wasn't working into IT sector, but he got into IT when India was kind of like becoming kind of like a center or a hub of IT and computer science. And then when he got into IT, he kind of like grew a lot in his profession, in his career, and he got a chance or an opportunity to go to America. And then he was also earning quite a decent salary as well. Sorry, I think someone's microphone's still on. I'm really sorry to stop. I think I might have to. Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Could you please make sure that you're on mute, so because then I can hear you. So. All right. Okay, so yeah, talking about my father. So he had got into the IT and went to America, and he was earning a decent salary. And I was thinking, oh, that sounds fantastic. I want to do that. I want to go travel around the world, go to different countries, and also earn money, good money. So I didn't really know what I would be getting myself into when I started learning computer science, although I was learning basics of it in school. And also we had computer because my father worked in computers. So I was one of those household that had computers quite early on. Um, I was kind of getting interested in it, but not really knowing what it is all about. Um, that was my motivation kind of to get into digital sector. However, since then, I haven't really regretted that decision, because I kind of can say now that I have, in a way, achieved that dream of mine where I wanted to go, not travel around the world. Maybe that will happen in the future. I've been busy to do that. However, I have been able to go to different countries, and I have a good, decent job right now. And also with IT being so in demand, I know that even if right now I don't want to work in academia, maybe tomorrow I want to go in industry, that's something I could do, and there is a need demand for it. So I haven't really regretted that decision. Um, so yeah, that's my picture of when we had gone to USA to visit my father. That was my first trip international, and I thought, fantastic, this is what I want to do in the future. And that's it. My journey in computer science and digital world was like decided. After that, I did my bachelor's in engineering in computer science. And after I finished that, although my parents wanted to, especially my father wanted me to work after that, I decided, no, I wanted to go and do my master's. So I went to University of Nottingham. I did my master's there. That's where I got introduced to a topic called human-computer interaction. Although I had been introduced to it during my computer science engineering course, it wasn't that in-depth. And also in Indian engineering course especially, it's so applied that a research-based topic like human-computer interaction isn't kind of seen as important. However, in research-based university, which is Nottingham is, they did a lot of research in human-computer interaction, and I got really interested in it because that involved learning how do people interact with computers, and how computers which are all around us, not only computers which have screens, but the computerized technologies which are embedded in all around in our surroundings, um, are affecting us, and how are we using these technologies, and how can we design new technologies which are also more user friendly and more useful for people in general. So I got really interested in HCI, human computer interaction is called HCI as a short. And after that, I was thinking perhaps in the future I would like to do PhD in this area, more research. But before that, I wanted to get some experience in the digital world, more of in an industry. So I went and worked in industry for 2 years as kind of in a really small company, digital company, doing a bit of client handling, project management. Because it was a small company, I had many different jobs. That gave me a really good experience of how a company works, and kind of applied the concepts that I had learned during my engineering and my master's in real life. However, I was still missing the research part. I was still missing academia. So I decided to go back to university again. And I got scholarship to do my PhD here at Bath. And that's how I came here at Bath. And basically, when I was working in the industry, Internet of Things back in the day, this was around 2012, 13, Internet of Things was becoming quite kind of important or quite exciting area that was being talked about everywhere. It had become like this buzzword, and I was getting more and more interested because because it was becoming quite and kind of sought after topic as well. So I kind of combined human-computer interaction with Internet of Things together in my PhD. And what I did was that I kind of like researched on a topic of how these Internet of Things products can connect us with our loved ones. So I don't know if you guys know much about Internet of Things here. Some no. Okay, all right. So basically, Internet of Things. Okay, some knowledge. All right. Internet of Things basically refers to this kind of, it's like an umbrella term, okay? So it's quite, there is no agreed upon definition of Internet of Things. It basically refers to different devices being connected to each other via some medium. It could be wired, it could be wireless. Some examples of Internet of Things products you may have seen can be Alexa, Fitbit, smartwatches. I've got a smartwatch here that does things. So that's one of the example. I've got also a jewelry that's connected to my watch, earphones, which are wireless or wired. Let's say a smart fridge, a smart car, which is connected to internet. All of these things which are connected via internet mainly, however, also wired connection. And they are able to kind of sense data around them, because all of these things, even thinking about your phone, it's got so many different sensors in it. So it's collecting data about its surrounding. It's sending that data to different applications. And also it's kind of helping us to live our lives in a more better way, in a sense. I mean, it's a topic for debate that some people think that is not beneficial or it's beneficial, but that's a separate topic altogether. But yeah, so this all of these technologies, including computer, including our phones, connected, talking to each other, making decisions on behalf of each other, talking to us in a way as well, is this ecosystem is called kind of Internet of Things objects ecosystem. And now there are 7 billion connected IoT devices, Internet of Things devices today, and it's predicted that the connected devices total would hit almost 50 billion at the end of the year. Now you can imagine the kind of applications that these Internet of Things objects can have, or these technologies can have. It goes from healthcare to retail to supply chain management. And there are lots and lots and lots of different applications of these products. What I was trying to look at was how these can be used to connect us to our loved ones. So because these technologies are all embedded around us, in our surrounding, can we use them to create a sort of awareness that we miss when we live away from each other? And how can we do that, and what sort of impact it will have on people? Now, my research also mainly focused on parents and adult children. Reason being, when I started doing research in this area, I found there was a big gap of research on this particular relationship. There is a lot of work being done on lovers being connected, friends being connected, colleagues being connected, doing collaborative work together. However, parents and adult children, so not parents and small children, but people like us connected to our parents, or our parents being connected to their parents, this is area that's quite, that lacks research. Now, we do have, you might say, we do have phones and we do have computers. Why do we need Internet of Things to kind of connect us? Well, research quite shows that sometimes people do not necessarily may not want to talk to each other. However, they want to be aware of each other. And people also have busy lives, and where people may desire some communication, it's not always possible. Previous research had also shown that people did desire this sense of connectedness, sense of connection with each other. So when I started working in this area, I saw that there were a lot of like gimmicky kind of technology is being proposed to connect people, but the design was very much not that great. It wasn't very usable, and also there were not enough user studies done to really understand how these things are affecting people. So what I did was I did a few different studies, but I'll talk quickly about two of them. One of the study that I designed something called smart lamps, which was an IoT-based system which used connected objects. Whereas I kind of like where I gave a lamp to parents which lived away from their adult children, and that lamp was connected to a location that the lamp was connected to their adult children in a sense that their adult child could choose a location. When they arrived at that location, the lamp would switch on at the parents' house, and if they left that location, the lamp would switch off. So most of my participants chose home as their arrival and leaving place. So when let's say when I came home, my my parents' house had a lamp that switched on, and when I left, it switched off. This was kind of to create an awareness of a distant person. Some of my participants even said it was like a ghostly awareness of kind of like awareness of a person who wasn't there, but who was kind of there. They felt that they were. Another study I did was with connected jewelries. So this was different in a sense that it wasn't connected to people's location as such, but it was when people wanted to say that I'm thinking of you, they could kind of express that without having to search their phones and things like that. So the participants wore these beautiful jewelries that look like jewelries. They weren't very techy looking. And they were given these jewelries like a ring or a bracelet they could choose. Also, it depended on what fitted them with the jewelry wise. And people could send each other kind of like a message to say, I'm thinking of you, or things like that. And I did a study with these jewelries with 12 different parent adult children. It was 6 weeks diary studies, and I used qualitative and quantitative method, measured their thoughts about what they felt, also their connectedness, their closeness, and their awareness of each other. What I found, so if I want to talk about my page, it's going to take a long time, but what I generally found at the end was that there were some kind of complementary needs of parents and adult children that there are some that both of them have, there are some that only parents have, some that only adult children have. So what I found that, contrary to many people's kind of like beliefs that, oh, we have enough contact and we don't need any more, people did desire the sense of connectedness. They wanted to maintain the contacts with each other. They also, this was quite important for them to know that they were doing well. So reassurance was one of the main themes that came time and time again, kind of like that people wanted to know about each other's well-being. And parents also wanted to know about their children's well-being, and children wanted to know about their parents' well-being. They also wanted to provide support to each other, such as practical support, emotional support. Parents specifically wanted to know when their children are free to talk or free that they can contact them, because they kind of didn't want to disturb them. So basically, lots of parents said that, oh, I know he or she is busy, I do not want to kind of disturb them. Parents wanted to get reply when they sent messages. So some of the moms said to me that they feel really frustrated or kind of upset when they see on WhatsApp that message has been read but hasn't been replied for days. So things like that. So they wanted to receive reply, parents did. And adult children had this sense of guilt that I saw time and time again, that that, oh, I don't contact my parents enough. So they carried this sense of guilt, which was quite interesting. These were kind of different needs of parents and adult children that I found. And these technologies that I designed help them in some way, in addition to their regular communication, to kind of meet those needs. So talking about the LAMP study, a parent said that it's very reassuring and settling when it turns on. And since we've visited their daughter plenty of times, it is lovely to be able to visualize her in her home environment where we know that she's safe and she's happy. Another mom said whose son had just gone off to university was, I knew that he was very busy, so I didn't want to bother him. But I was happy to know when he was like home, so when the lamp kind of turned on. So there were some benefits and there were some costs of using these lamps. The benefits were that there were lots of reassurance that people felt. They felt closeness, increased connectedness, knowing when people were available. That was quite important. The costs of these lamps were that, when people are not there, like out of sight, out of mind, kind of. So when the parents had these lamps again, they felt sense of worry if the lamp didn't switch on. So they kind of felt also that it wasn't necessary always, especially parents of adult children said it wasn't necessary always for them to know where they are. So kind of that they were threatening their privacy of their adult children for some reason. Interestingly, the parents of younger adults, for example, the children who had just gone off to the university, their parents didn't feel that. They didn't feel that they were invading their privacy. Whereas parents of older adult children felt that they were, which was pretty interesting. With the jewelry, I found it was even more kind of useful for parents and adult children relationship in a way that they were subtly, like in a subtle way, able to send each other messages of thinking of you, which many people interpreted as kind of form of like, expressing love or kind of like, oh, miss you kind of way. So it was quite like the statistical data showed that it did make people feel close and connected during the period that they did use these jewelries, more so than the lamp. Because this was from both sides, they were sending each other messages, like subtle messages of thinking of you throughout the day. And it was very easy because it was just kind of like a pressing a button. It was only between the two of them. So it was pretty nice. Now, that was about my PhD research. Since then, I've moved on. I'm doing some research now, kind of looking at virtual reality and augmented reality interventions for the treatment of OCD. I'm collaborating with some of the researchers in the Department of Psychology. As I said, human-computer interaction research is quite interdisciplinary, so lots of people from different departments can and do work together always. Also, I am looking at different technology and technological applications for sustainability. So sustainable behaviors, how can we reduce our carbon footprint and things like that. There are several projects that I'm doing with my students. One recent project that I've been involved in is kind of like using technologies for addressing stigmas that surround around menstruation, especially in South Asian countries. So that's been very interesting things that I've been working on. Do you guys have any questions? Do you want to ask me about my research and my journey so far before we move on to Python? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask me questions, or feel free to write in chat. Okay. All right. If you want to ask, you can ask me later on as well. Okay. So we'll move on now to Python. Before we do, I would really like to know how many of you have some programming experience. Is this your first time? Okay. No experience, all right. Okay. Okay. All right. So this tutorial is going to be very basic because I assume most of you won't have much experience. So it's going to be very simple, kind of like introduction to programming. And I've chosen Python, and I'll tell you why. But it's a nice, clean, simple language to study. I had started studying my first programming language that I started studying was C++, and then I did a bit of programming in C++ first, and then mostly after that in C. And I'm going to be honest, it did tiny bit put me off, and I think that's one of the reasons I don't want to start with C++ because they can be quite technical, quite a tiny bit difficult language, whereas Python is very simple, it's very easy, it's kind of like has a cleaner syntax, uses English words to kind of explain things, so it's much easier to learn compared to some of the other languages. So if any of you have any coding experience, this might feel very basic, but people who have no or very little experience might benefit from this, okay? So talking about Python, it's a high-level programming language. It's written by Guido van Rossum. I hope I pronounced that right. It's written in C, and it was released in 1991, although back then it wasn't as popular as it is now. It's getting really, really, really popular now. It is used for various different purposes. So one of the reasons I wanted to use this is because it's quite versatile. So it's used on different, you can do lots of different things with it. So one thing I want to make clear, so different programming languages have different applications, okay? So if you take, for example, let's say you take HTML, it can only do so much. It can only do, let's say, a front-end programming, or let's say web-based sort of like a, looks, user interface kind of things. So you cannot program logic of any application using, let's say, using HTML or JavaScript. So there are different programming languages that do different things. So C is quite powerful language, Python is quite powerful language, C++ is quite powerful, Java is quite good because you can do lots of different things. You can write server-side, with Python especially, you can write server-side code, so logic of the program. Different softwares can be developed using Python. It's very popular in data science, so you can, so if you want to go into data science in the future, it's a very good language to learn. Also for artificial intelligence application, it is used popularly. So there are lots and lots of different applications of Python. Now, what it can't do is it can't talk to databases, okay? So there are different language. A language called SQL, or structured query language, is used when you want to talk to a database. So to query a data in and out of database. Python can't do that. And most other programming languages can't do that, okay? So there are different applications of different programming languages, and you kind of get to know, you need to know which ones are used for what. There are multiple different ones used for multiple different things. So you kind of, when you start programming, you will see that the differences. So the things you need to know is this is a high-level programming language. It is quite versatile in a sense that it follows different programming paradigm. So it can be object-oriented, it can be procedural, it can work as functional. So it follows different programming paradigms, which is very interesting thing about Python because not many languages are like that. Okay. So why should we learn Python? It's easy to learn. It has got clean syntax. However, it still provides you with lots and lots of kind of ability to do, so you can write quite powerful programs with Python. It has this batteries included approach. What it means basically is it comes with a great standard library packages which are immediately available. You do not have to download anything for them to work. They just kind of like it comes with it. So you don't have to necessarily write everything from scratch because you already have these things written for you that you can kind of call or use. Now, it also works on different platforms. So Microsoft, Mac, Linux, Raspberry Pi, so it's quite versatile in that way. Also, it has, as I already said, it has object-oriented features. It can be procedural. Now, some of these concepts might be difficult for you to understand, but you will hear about them in the future. If you were to go in IT, if you were to go in digital world, you'll kind of hear them a lot, yeah. Okay, another important thing is that Python is used by lots of big companies. So if you ever want to go in like IT, work for companies, all big companies are using this language. So Facebook, Google, NASA, Dropbox, all of these companies are using Python. Obviously, they also use other languages, but if you learn Python, your employability is going to increase a lot, okay? And it's become like one of the fastest growing major kind of like a programming languages in the world right now. And this popularity is just growing and growing. One good thing about Python is it's open source and has a huge community. So what is good about that is if you ever start programming and if you run into problems, you can always find people that can help you out with it. So there is lots of forums that you can write your questions. You probably will, you probably can find those questions answered already also. So if you have any questions, you can kind of Google any errors you're getting, Google it. There are lots and lots of documentation and support available if you want to get into Python programming. So that's very good. Right. Couple of things to know. Okay. There are many different languages, obviously, that you can learn. Java is quite popular. So that's one of the good languages to learn. C is quite good to learn, especially if you want to get into kind of like a core development programming. But for data science and AI, as far as I know, Python's very popular. Obviously, different companies do use different things, but if you want to increase your employability as like in general, Java, Python, C++ or any object-oriented other, Java's like that too. C# can be good as well, but at the top of the list right now, I would say Python and Java are kind of like leading. So if you want to generally know a language or learn a language, you can learn this. Another important thing I would like you to know is, once you start programming, you need to learn about programming paradigms. For example, things like what are variables, which I will be teaching you today. What are variables? What are conditional statement? What are loops? How do they work? So what's the logic of that? How do these things work? There are functions, there are methods. These are some basic things in all the programming languages will have them, or most of the programming languages will have them. And in different programming languages, they might be called different. So some programming language may call a function a method, and some call it function, just depends. However, some of the basic things that I will be teaching you today will be there in all of the languages, okay? Only thing you will have to learn is the syntax. So basically what you will be learning now, or first you should focus on learning, is understanding these programming paradigms. And then you can apply that. Once you know how to program, you can learn a syntax quite quickly and learn to do that in different ways. Now, when the problem occurs is when you want to jump between functional programming to procedural programming to object-oriented programming. Reason being, the way that these languages work, so a procedural programming language is, an example is C, okay? The way C works is quite different to an object-oriented language, which is C++. So for you to get that way of thinking can be quite difficult. So if you learn an object-oriented language, which Python is, it would be easy for you to transition into or learn C++ or other object-oriented language, all right? And object-oriented languages are very popular these days. They have lots of applications. So I would say in general, learning an object-oriented language is pretty good. Now, Python is interesting because it allows you to do procedural as well as object-oriented as well as functions. It's kind of very good language to learn, I would say. Okay. There are two different versions of Python. The current version that's going on is Python version 3. Version 2 is still being used for some legacy softwares, but there aren't going to be any more updates available going to be coming out for Python 2. So I would say there's not much point in learning Python 2. So learning Python 3 is much more useful. Okay, so in other programming languages, you will see that you may have to use a semicolon or something like that to end the command. So each new line is you need to have semicolon at the end. However, Python uses as a new line as a new line or new, it's a command written on one line is a complete command, and any command that's written on a new line, that's new command. Anyway, I think it will become clear when I start programming. Also, it relies on indentation, which I will again talk about when I start programming. Okay, one thing that you would need is an integrated development environment, which is called IDE. What is it? It's basically a software application that provides a comprehensive kind of environment or a facility for computer programmers to develop a software, all right? To write a program, all right? So here so basically an IDE provides you a place where you can write your code and a place where you can run the code. So they come with kind of like a debugger or an automation kind of tools, or the tools that kind of compiles and interprets your program. I won't go into all those details right now. So basically what it does is it will take your kind of source code, it will interpret, it will do all of the things it needs to, and it will run your program in the same place, all right? So when you're writing your code, you can test it out then and there. So most of the time you will have to download these IDEs, okay? And quite famous IDEs are Eclipse is quite famous. Can't think of any other, but there are many famous IDEs that you could use. What I like to use is one called REPL.it. The reason I like to use it is because you don't have to download anything. And for sessions like this, it's really, it makes no sense for you to kind of download and install an application and then having to write the program. All you have to do is, because this is a browser-based IDE, so software is in the browser, it provides you that software. So if you go on, not now, but afterwards, all you will need to do is go on REPL.it and start coding, all right? So is there anything else? No. All right. So we'll now start with our first program. So if you go on the REPL.it, this site provides you an IDE that you can write many different programs in, using many different languages. All right. So if you click on plus sign here, it will give you option which language you want to write in. So as you can see, like I usually write in SQLite or Python. I also use C, and there are many other languages that you can use and write codes here. But today we are going to use Python. So you choose Python. It gives a random name. You can give your own name if you want. Let's say first program, and you say create REPL. All right. It will then provide you with this IDE. Okay. And over here, you can see we have a file open already called main.py. This is where you're going to write your code. Okay, this is where you're going to write your source code. And every time you write something and you want to test it out, what it's doing, you say run, and it should run over here. All right, on your right hand side. Now, one thing to think about here is basically when you are this area where it says this black area is an area where is an area that's your user going to see. So you as a programmer basically you are writing a code that it might be an application, it could be a web application, it could be a downloadable application, it could be a program. So today we are not going to make an application as such, we're just going to do basic programming, how to do addition, subtraction, how to print something on the web page, not web page, but to the console or to the page, the user, how to take input from the users and things like that. So to do like really basic thing, in Python, it's very easy. All you have to do to print something, let's say to the user, you write print two round brackets. In that you can use either double quotes or single quotes, doesn't matter. But if you use double quotes, be consistent with it. Okay, so always use double quotes if you're using double quotes inside the print. So this is a print statement. It's basically we are calling a function called print, and inside that we write what we want to be displayed. And over here, we are going to write, let's say, hello world, which is like the first program we always learn when we start learning any language, all right? Okay, it's as simple as that. It's a print, hello world. This is your first piece of code, all right? You say run, and on the right-hand side, you can say it's printing hello world, all right? So now, if you guys want to give it a go quickly. Can you all guys see my screen? Yes, okay. Gabrielle, what are you using a computer? You should be able to see my screen. Gabriella, I think I said your name wrong, sorry. Is it working? Have you guys got any questions yet? I'm going to stop sharing and share again in case if people are not able to see. Okay, share screen. Can most of you see my screen now? Yeah, all right. Okay, so that is your first program, all right? Now, I don't know if you guys have have you given it a go? Like, you know, have you tried it yourself? Has it worked? Yeah, great. Okay, so that's your first program. That's, you know, that's excellent. You're already a programmer. You're starting programming. Great. Okay, so next thing that's quite important. It's called learning about variables. Now, before we start variables and things like that, understanding those concepts in Python, it's very important to learn about indentation. Indentation is this tab button, all right? That's very important in Python. So when you do not have anything indented, all right? At the moment, print statement is not indented. Indented means it's not, you know, there is no tab. It's literally on the first line. That's your main bit of program, all right? That's where your main function is. If you guys have any, if you guys know other programs, that's your main area of your program. There are something called conditional statements, like if statement. There are loops, which are like for loops, or functions, which are defined using def word. And you will have some code here. And then after that, let's say a conditional statement, if is a conditional statement. And after that, you can give a condition. Let's say I want to say A is greater than B, and colon. That's a syntax. That's how it works. Okay, so sometimes it's just sometimes you might think, why is it that way? It's just sometimes it's the syntax of that language. It's how it's written. And if I do enter, you can see it's already indented here, right? But if it's not indented, in some text editors or in some editors, it may not indent automatically. Over here, because it's Python file, you can see main.py. It indicates it's a Python file. Over here, this REPL.8 automatically indents it for me, all right? What this indentation means is, whatever I write after this is going to be part of that block, all right? It's only going to be part of if condition block, okay? In other languages, they kind of use curly brackets many times, okay, to kind of represent a block. Python doesn't use that, all right? Okay. That's one thing about indentation, and you will see it when we start doing it more and more. So, next, variables. So variables are basically, they are like containers that we store some data. Think about it as like maybe like a box, a memory box somewhere that we're storing some data. They're called variables because they can vary in their values. So we can store any data we want or any value we want into variables. In other languages such as C, you have to define a variable by writing like int something, int a, let's say. You can give any name to your variable as you want. So you can give it like A, B, C, D. You can give it more like a descriptive name, such as if I want a variable that has a number, so I might use a number. Okay. So in other languages, you have to define them before you use them. In Python, you don't have to do that. All right. A variable gets defined when you write a name for it, like let's say variable. So you can give it any name. So I'm giving it var, and I assign equal to is an assignment operator in any language, and I give it a value. Let's say 6. This is an integer value. It's a number. So what's happening here is basically this program now is creating a container called var, and it's putting 6 into that container, okay? So in the future, if you want to print that, we can say print. We've already learned the print statement. And we can add, we can say var, all right? We are not using double quotes here because we are not displaying our own string yet. We are just displaying the variable. So print var, and this would then print the value of that container, which right now it's 6, all right? You can put any data you want into this variable. There are many different data types. The main ones are int, there is float, there is bool, there is string, which is written by str. All right, so there are many different data types. There are different data types in different languages, and there are many different in Python also, but these are the main ones you're likely to use, at least in the beginning, okay, as a beginner. So what is int? Okay, int is a number, which is a whole number, okay? So 6 is an int, 100 is int, 1000 is int, okay? So 1000, so any whole number is int. What is float? Any number that has decimal point, like let's say 4.5, 4.6, 7.8, these are all float values, all right? Anything that has floating point, okay? What is bool? Bool is a Boolean value. Boolean value has only 2 values to it. It's either 0 or 1, or it can be true or false, okay? 0 represents false, 1 represents true, all right? These ones are used quite commonly. So it's either 0 or 1, or it can be true or false. 0 means true. However, don't confuse this with int, all right? Int obviously will have 0 and 1 because they're numbers, but bool is a special kind of type of data type. 1 represents true and 0 represents false. I think I said opposite earlier. What is string? String is any string, like, Bhagyashree, which is my name. I don't know, like Bath University is a string, all right? So any or A, B is a string, okay? Interestingly, anything that's written in the single or double quotes can be string. So if you write 2 in the single or double quotes, that becomes a string. Also, when you're writing string, always you use single or double quotes. I'm using single quotes here, but that's how you would write string, all right? So when you have a variable, it can be any of these types. So these are main types. Obviously, there are other types, but I'm only teaching you today the basic ones. Now, another important thing in any and all programming languages is comments. What is comment or comments? It's basically what I'm writing here. This is not, I don't want this to be part of the program. I'm just writing it to explain it to you, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment it out. There are 2 ways. So basically what I mean by that is commenting it out means I do not want program to read that because I'm basically writing what I want to write there. Just, it's not part of the program. It's not part of the executable file, right? It's only for me to kind of say something I'm thinking or comment something that I want to have as a note, either for myself or as a purpose of documentation. And it's always good to have quotes in your program, because as a programmer, you must have heard this, and I can also say this. Even if you've written your own program, come back to it after a month or 2, you're going to forget what you were doing, because the logic every time you use can be different. You don't always use the same logic. So it's always good to have comments. There are two ways of commenting in Python. If you want to write a single line comment, which is just going to be on the single line, use hashtag, all right? And you can write, this is a comment. You can see it's like, it's grayed out, right? Another way of adding comment is if you have multi-line comments, such as what I have here. I do not want this bit to be executed because this is going to give me errors, right? So I want to comment it out. I do not want that to be part of my program. So I can use 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes, either or, and also end it with 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes. If you use 3 single quotes, you have to end it with 3 single quotes. If you write 3 double quotes in the beginning, you have to end it with 3 double quotes, all right?
And I want to
so now you can see that these bits aren't going to be executed as a part of my program, okay? If I hadn't commented this, let's say if I hadn't commented this and I try and run my program, it's going to give me error. Right, here is the error, saying that
various different
invalid syntax is really not doing anything, it's not running.
Just refreshes in Word, PowerPoint to...
Sorry, are you guys is someone asking me a question, or are you guys...
course MSc programs. So you can see I've done a lot of research.
Guys, I think someone's gone on unmute again. Could you mute yourself, please?
Too much detail, and this presentation will be available afterwards. So there will be some links.
Sorry, just
First of all, I'm going to speak about...
Sorry, I'm just going to try and find how to mute everyone.
This was produced by the Department for Education and is managed by the National Career Service. The course is on offer.
All right, great. Okay, so, right. I'm going to comment this out, obviously, because I do not want that to run. So you can see that I've got error here, right? Now error, hold on. Error is a big part of your programming. You are going to get lots and lots and lots of errors, all right? That's just part of life. You are going to find it very frustrating to go through them and try and clear them. It's called debugging. And it's not always the most fun experience, but it's quite satisfying at the end when your program starts running again properly. There are 2 types of errors. You can have a syntax error, which is what I've got here. So basically it's saying my syntax is wrong. Debugging is learned by failing. Yep, pretty much. I completely agree, Carol. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so you can see over here that I've got a syntax error saying that I've written something and it's an invalid syntax. Python doesn't understand what's going on here. There are sometimes some other type of errors which are called logical errors. Basically, your syntax is all correct, but your program is still not doing what you intend it to do. What you could do when you want to get rid of logical errors, basically sometimes add a print statement to see where things are going wrong, going through your program logically. There are different ways of solving logical errors, but they can be more frustrating because you cannot find, your program cannot tell you where things have gone wrong, right? So you have to think about it in a bit more detail. Now, you've learned about variable, and over here, I've created a variable and I have given it a value. In other languages, you have to specify what type of data you're going to have in that variable. In Python, it's quite nice that you don't have to do that, all right? So Python, basically, when you assign it a value, it assumes or it understands what type of data you are adding or you are assigning in that variable. So if I assign, let's say, There is another variable I write, let's say Kage. This is another variable, and it's basically now storing Page. So if I want to print it out, run this program, you can see I can print, it's printing 6 because I'm printing variable, and it's also printing name. Another thing you could do is, right now, all I'm doing is I am taking a value, saving, like not saving, but assigning it to a variable, and then I'm printing it out right now. There are lots of other things I can do. Is I can print to, let's say, I can add numbers, so I can like do 1 plus 2. So this works, and it will give me answer to that, which you can see 3. You can assign, I have variable 1, let's say 6. I give another variable, let's say 7. And I can add variable 1 to variable 2, all right? And that works, okay? Similarly, I can also have variables that are string, and I can add them as well, as you can see over here, all right? Plus 7. So it's adding both of them together, all right? Obviously, there is no space in between. Space is a string in itself, all right? So what you could do is either add space here, or you could add space when you're trying to print it, okay? So now you can see there is a space here. If you want to have something on a new line, what you could do is basically have /n, so \n, and have so \n will basically essentially will print that on the new line. So if we run that, you can see over here that it is it's come on new line, although it's on the same here by \n, it can print things on the new line. I think I'll just teach you a couple of other things and give you a task, okay? You can take values, you can accept values from user, okay? So this area that you can see here it's what user is currently seeing, all right? So you can also take the values from user. How do you do that? There is an input function for it. So you can have a variable. Again, it can be any variable. Let's say input. No, let's not use. All right. One important thing I forgot to say. There are some keywords in Python like input, print. Like what else? So far we have only used print. Okay. You cannot use these words as names of variables. You can only use. There are some reserved words. Also, int is a reserved word, so you cannot use that as a name of a variable. You cannot use float, or you cannot use bool, because they all have some specific meaning for Python. It means something to Python. So if you try and use that as a name of a variable, it will throw you an error. It will get confused. It won't understand what you mean. Okay, so so let's say user input. And I'm going to use a function called input, which takes the input from console or from the user, and it tries to print it, okay? So over here, I'm going to write
what I found is that pivoting was good, building on what you feel confident
enter something.
What brings you joy is important.
Okay.
So my pathway,
And I am going to print that user input. Because once we write this input, it's not really, what he's going to do is going to take something that we type on the console, he's going to save it in this variable, all right? And when it will save it, but then after that, it won't do anything. So we can do something with it in our program. So currently, all I'm doing is using printing it out.
You either become a doctor.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think people have left their things on. So yeah. So when I run this, you can see that program is telling me, please enter something. This is what user is seeing, all right? So they can say hi. So it's printing hi, okay? So now what I want you to do is, I want you to define two variables, and I want you to print out their addition, and I also want you to print out their subtraction, okay? So I'm going to write that here. Define two variables in your program and print addition and subtraction. This is your first task. So do you want to give it a quick go right now for me and let me know how you get on? Try it with maybe perhaps integer value, float value, and string values. Don't use bool for now. Yeah, don't use bool for now. Also, you can unmute yourself if you want. You can talk to me if you want, ask me questions. So please go on your apple.it and define two variables in your program. You can give it any name. And please print out addition and subtraction. How are you guys getting on? Please also, could you let me know when you're done so that I can move on then? If you got any errors. Anyone fancy also sharing your screen and showing how they did? Please feel free to do that. I'd be happy to see your outputs. Nice. Okay, what I want you to do now is basically take an input from user, ask them their name. So write, give me your name, and then print out hi, their name. So I'll type it here, question, this was question 1. Now the question 2 is, ask user to input their name and then print out their name with hi, like, hi name, their name. Basically say hi to them. Or program can say hi to them. You can see the syntax here, how to do that. Let me know, how are you getting on? Nice. Anyone got any error? Also, there is no stupid question, all right, guys? Like, there are these can be quite these can be quite abstract concepts. Zainab, you can use int when adding and subtracting. So you can add and subtract using int. To give you an example, over here, we just gonna comment. So we have variable 1 and 2. What I'm going to do is basically print variable 1, plus variable 2, and print variable 1 and variable 2. Sorry, not plus, minus. And I'm also going to put a line in here just to separate things out. Okay, so you can see over here that it does work. So you can have, do you want to tell what syntax error you got, sign up? Okay. Similarly, obviously, you can also do all the other things like multiplication. For multiplication, you use this asterisk character. So var1 multiplied by var2. That's going to give you multiplication. And then also for division, you can use like a slash. So that's for divide. Okay. So you can see that that all works. Now what I'm going to do is insert the number. Okay. Yeah. So are you guys all done with the question 2? How did you get on? Were you able to take the input from the user and print hi the name? This would basically work in this way. I'm also going to kind of like comment everything out. So what you would do here is basically take name, add that into, so use input enter your name, please. And when they enter their name, you can print it saying hi plus, which is a concatenation operator, name. All right. Enter your name, Bhagi, hi Bhagi. All right. Now, next one. There is something called conditional operator. So maybe sometime you want to check some of the conditions and you want to execute some of the code only if those conditions are met. How do you do that? I'm going to again comment this out. So you can use if, or it's called conditional statement. Okay. So in Python and many other languages, I would say most of the languages, conditional statements have this similar syntax, and it's called if. So if is a condition, you can see that the color has changed here, meaning that it has some, it's a keyword, it has some meaning in Python. So if, let's say we had this var, let's have them again here. So I'm just going to copy paste that. So we have two variables, and I want to check whether if variable 1 is greater than variable 2, then we can say it's already been indented. So now all of my code that's going to be below this if statement is going to be part of that conditional block. All right. So if variable 1 is greater than variable 2, I'm going to print I'm going to use placeholders here. So placeholder is greater than, placeholder is basically when you want to print something out that's part of your variable, right? You will see how it works. So that first variable is greater than the other variable. And you have to tell the program what you're using there. So it's, in this case, you use dot format to use this. All right. Now, this will only execute, this block of code will only execute if this condition is met. And that's the syntax for it. All right. So you write if your condition, which in this case is this condition. You can have other conditions, right? If that condition is met, execute this block of code. All right. Let's see if it works. Well, you can see over here, variable is not greater than variable 2. So obviously nothing's happened. This statement did not get executed because this condition wasn't met. There is something called else, if else. So you can use else to give another condition or say otherwise in a way. Else, and I'm just going to copy this quickly. Print something is not greater now, is either less than or equal to the other one. So dot format is like a it's a method or a function that's already been written somewhere, all right? It's already been written on in your Python somewhere that we are just using. It's a syntax to basically say this is my placeholder, and I want to print out these variable values in that sequence. So the sequence that you give these variable values, that's the sequence it's going to print it out. Okay, you will see now when we execute this. So over here, we have written this condition. We have given this condition. If this condition is satisfied, please execute this block of code. Otherwise, else, do this block of code. All right. So if you run this now, it's saying 6 is less than or equal to 7, all right? So you can see this one is being printed. How do we know that? Because that's what's been printed here. And you can see that the order in which we wrote this variable 1, variable 2, that's the order that's been printed over here. So 6 is what is in variable 1, 7 is what is in variable 2, all right? So this is a conditional statement. So you can have like different condition. You can have many different conditions here, like, and how the way to use it is else, which is in some other languages is called else, else if, sorry, where in Python is called elif. Okay, you always use colon at the end of it to represent that block of code. Elif could be, again, you have to give a condition here. So that's obviously showing me some error here, invalid syntax. You have to have a condition if you use elif. When you use else, you don't need any condition with else. Only with if and elif, you need a condition next to it. And if those block of codes will only execute if those conditions are met. So let's say if var1 is equal to, so one thing in any programming languages that you need to understand the difference between equal to sign and double equal to sign. Equal to sign is an assignment operator, whereas double equal to sign means actually equal to, right? When you want to say something is exactly like the other, you use double equal to. And people in the beginning quite struggle with this because equal to sign is so embedded in our head as equal to that using it as an assignment operator that changes, like, you can put other values into a variable. Whereas double equal to is what actually equals to mean. So, yeah. So what I'm going to do is in this block of code, I'm going to write variable 1 is equal to variable 2, all right? And over here in third block of code, I will write, if these two conditions are untrue, then do this, meaning that variable 1 will be less than variable 2. So if you run this, obviously it's not equal to, so the third block has been executed. If these were true, both equal, if we run that again, it's basically doing like executing this block of code, all right? And this is quite common in all of the programming languages, okay? These are called conditional statement. All of the programming languages, or most of the programming, not all, like, obviously some of the, I don't know, some of the front-end languages may not have that, but C, C++, Java, like all of these main languages will have conditional statement. And this is what the format is. Now, if you want, you can trial this same thing with some other conditions. So let's say you can try it with if a name matches another name, then you can kind of like, print that out and trial that. I'll kind of leave you with some of the different good tutorial sites that you can learn because we are coming towards the end. So W3 Schools for Python is very nice, very easy to learn tutorial, all right? So from home, it really explains you in detail what are the different things, how does Python do different type of things, intro, syntax, what are variables, different data types, different data types that today we only covered a few, if else, right, how to do that, different things like functions, loops, you get to learn. Very easy to do tutorial. You can try it yourself. So you can write a program and you can try it yourself. You run it over there. So this is very good place to kind of start learning basics of Python or programming. They've got different ones. They've got SQL, PHP, other ones as well. So this is a very good site, in my opinion. So you can try that. All right, I think that's the end of our session. I will stay on for like 5-10 minutes more if you guys want to ask me any questions. Otherwise, Please, could you let me know how you found it in the group chat, please, so that I kind of like get to know if you guys understood, like what did you think about it and things like that. And of course, if not, I hope you enjoyed the session. I really enjoyed hosting it, and I wish more and more of girls get into technologies, into IT, and yeah, I wish you good luck for the future. If you ever want to contact me, right, I should write I will write my email ID here. So you can contact me on this email ID. It's b.patil@bath.ac.uk. If you want to ask any questions, ever want to talk about my research, get in touch with me. I'm very happy to talk to people. But yeah, I've had a really nice time, and I hope you enjoyed the session.